So we're gonna jump into point number 9. The reader is always right. The reader is always right. Every decision that you make about the product that you're gonna put out needs to be with the mind frame that I'm pleasing somebody else. You can't be so sensitive that you got a problem with people critiquing it, or you got a problem with people just not liking it, because at the end of the day, those are the people who are invested into it. And so you want to always put yourself in a perspective, you know. If you read a chapter, bro, and it's boring to you, you know that shit boring, bro. Like, we don't keep it real. We ain't gotta lie. It's boring. It ain't cool. So that don't mean scrap the whole thing. It just mean go add some excitement to it. Go over it. But you always want to look at it as a reader versus an author. And it's not the simplest thing to do in the beginning, because it's human nature to become so invested into your story, because to you, your story is the best story that's out. But you have to understand, like, look, I want people to flow through this as if it was a movie, as if they were in it.
And I think the only thing I would say to maybe, you know, I don't mean to challenge that, but at the same time, you know, it depends on what you're writing it for too.
Right.
Because I think sometimes people just want to write for their own therapy.
Right.
Writing is a therapy.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? So you might be like, man, I don't give a shit what anybody else think. I'm writing this for me. And sometimes some of the greatest pieces of work come from that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So obviously, if your goal is to sell 1 million copies,
you need to be thinking about some other people.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're doing it for therapy, then that's a different story. I think.
Talk about that a little bit.
So yeah, all my books were therapeutic. You know what I'm saying? So my first one came at a time where I was going through a lot. You know what I'm saying? Probably one of the worst moments of my life. You know, dealing with losses and, you know, just stuff that come and go with the streets. It's just how it is. You know what I'm saying? And originally, I didn't have the mind frame that other people were going to read it. But once that did become the mission, I had to write it from a reader's perspective. That's just the way it goes. No matter what product you're selling, you know, legitimate or not, like, you have to sell what people want to buy. But if you're doing this strictly for therapy, like if you just want to journal or just writing this how you release, then that's strictly for you. You know, and then eventually you might want to put it out and just don't care about it selling. You just like, I want to just get this out to the people that it do resonate with. That's okay too. But I'm here to show y'all how to produce another stream of income. Yeah. And when that's your mind frame, bro, you got to give the people what they want. Easy. And so definitely write, you know, from that perspective, you know what I'm saying? And make it as intriguing as possible. You know, that's what I say. And with that, point 10, slide into that, you want to stir up plenty drama. You want it to be as juicy as possible. Especially from a fictional book, this is your opportunity to be as dramatized as you want, as dramatic as you want, man. Like, put 2 on the 10, man. Be extra with it. You know what I mean? It's a story. That's what it's meant to do. It's meant to capture imaginations, man. And so just, man, go left with it, man. If it's a fight scene, man, like, man, why I gotta be a close fight, man? He got knocked out, his tooth came out, he swallowed another tooth, half his tongue, he punched him with a left hook, half his tongue ripped out his mouth. Like, that's gonna keep people on their edge, man. Be dramatic about it. If it's a cookbook, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, man, sauce it up, add your personality to it. You know, don't nobody wanna come and read, look, bro, I wanna see some effects, man. I want to see some fireworks.
You know, so again, you know, my first book was about me. So, you know, obviously, you know, non-fiction. And when you talk about stir up plenty drama, I had some things in there that only I knew. Right. You know, I had some things in there that I kind of debated with myself, like, yo, should I put that out? Right. Especially if it's dealing with somebody else. Right. And the conclusion that I came into my mind was like, you know what? This is my story.
Your story. So
for real, I don't even really care if it affects someone else. And I say that lightly. I don't mean it in a literal. But what I'm saying is, if they think different, then shit, they write
tell
a
their
story,
story,
you know what
right.
I'm saying? But I'm gonna tell my story from my perspective.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's my truth. And if somebody else get hurt in the process, then that's on them. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of some drama things that's in my book that, you know what I mean? And the crazy thing was, what I put in my book, the person, one of the stories in here, the person didn't even see it or hear it till maybe like 10 years, you know, maybe like 8 years later. You know what I'm saying?
It be like that, man. But your story is your story. It's your experience. And so, you know, sure, you want to be mindful of the characters that played a role in your life, but I look at it like this, man. If you just being real, that person should have thought about that when they were doing whatever to make you feel like that. And so, you know, I'm sure people have read my books and placed themselves in it, whether it was out of guilt or whether it was out of fact, but it's my story. And it's my perception, it's my angle of my experience, it's mine. And so if the person got a problem with how you're depicting them, you know, unless you're just totally fabricating something, it's only so much they can feel. And so you can't allow those feelings to taint or to water down your version of what happened to you. So stay true to you, stay true to your story. That's how I see it. Definitely, that's how I see it. And so writer's block, man. Writer's block is unavoidable. It's painful. It's a roadblock, bro. Yo, it's gonna cause a lot of anguish, man, because it comes at the worst times. It comes when you're the most excited, when you're the most confident. The next thing you know, boom, here it go. Now you stuck. And man, it's so tough, man. It's just like I said, man, one time I caught writer's block for like 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, man, no matter how long I sat in front of that laptop, I could not come up with nothing to add to the story. Not even like feeling like I was writing in order and I got to that point and got stopped. I couldn't think of nothing to write about no parts of the book. I'm just stuck. And so, you know, you want to do things like avoid focusing on the end, bro. You know what I mean? You know, if you're trying to make the perfect ending and you don't have it in your mind, just stay away from the end. Try to find other places to add value to your story. You could be halfway done in your mind. You can go back to that first half, right? And dive into an area where you can make the story stronger with what you've already done versus trying to think about what you're doing next. Mm-hmm. And me personally, I created, man, a 15-minute brainstorming activity, man, where before every writing session, take 15 minutes, set your timer, and write about anything. It don't even gotta make sense. Whatever come to your mind, man. You know what I mean? You wanna write whatever, man. If you seen, you know, man, if you was watching TV, man, you seen a fine female that you seen for the first time, write about her. Write about your child. Write about if your son spilled the juice this morning. Just write for 15 minutes about the juice. And when that timer go off, if you locked in writing in the juice, now your brain, your creative juices is flowing, no pun intended, and you ready to keep. Now, okay, I can hop into this. Okay. So it's just kind of like, it's like getting warmed up. You know what I'm saying? That works for me. When I'm having writer's block, I go write about something off topic.
I think another thing too is, and I don't think you want to get too deep in this, but if you know, struggling, like you said, you might want to go to some parts of the book that you already written and make that a little more juicy. Also, you can look at maybe going in and doing some soft edits to some of those things too. You know what I'm saying? So right. Like, you know what? I can't think of nothing. Let me go and edit a little bit, you know what I mean, in that first part. And then, oh shoot, you know what? That might lead you to another thought.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Like, let me go refine it. Let me go see, you know, if there's some obvious typos. Yeah. That's another thing. I don't want you to be too caught up on typos when you're writing your first draft. The goal is to just get a draft on paper, man. Right. Just be creative. And then when you go back for your second draft, you can be more tedious about the spelling and about the punctuation. But, bruh, do what you can do and outsource the rest. That's why you hire an editor. You know what I'm saying? Here you go. Like, you do your job. You know what I'm saying? So don't get too caught up on that. But yeah, like he said, if you can't continue forward, go back and You're still in the story. Just clean up what you can, just so you can be productive for that day with your story. You know what I'm saying? We spoke about the middle. You know what I'm saying? The middle being the toughest. So you just want to make sure you just want to stay away. You know what I'm saying? From being too focused on the way that your story should go. Just right, man. Right. So the ending of the story, you know, is what legends are made of, man. The ending, how you bring the story home, is what's gonna make or break your book. So that's the part that you want to take the most time on, man. You want to rush, focus, take your time, concentrate, give the readers the payoff they've been promised, man. For, you know, think about it like this: for a person to make it to the end of your book, that means they've stayed engaged of every part, the strong parts, the not so strong parts. And so, man, you want to make sure, man, the end is rewarding. You know what I'm saying?
I know a lot of people, they read the end of the story and then might go back and read the first, you know what I mean, the rest
Some
of the book.
people do
My
that.
wife do that all the time. I'm like, yo, why would you read the end of the story? She'll go read the end and then go back and read the rest of the book.
Right, and so the end, man, that's the big bang, man. You know, that's the part of the book that I feel like you should be, you know, you should critique the most. You should hold yourself to the highest standard of how the way you close your book out. You know what I'm saying? Because although first impression is very important, that the last taste you leave in the reader's mouth, you know what I mean, is gonna be what determines if they become a fan or not. And so, you know, you do that by taking your time, and that's the area you want to be the most critical about.
Yo.